Okay, I am going to record this without my little face in the bottom corner because the internet is being crazy, so I'm hoping this works without my little face in the corner. So if you need to pause this explanation, then just if you want to draw your own, feel free to do that. So what I have here, I started, and so I'm just going to review what I did, and then we'll continue. So you have the hypothalamus up here at the top. It's going to control the pituitary gland, and it does that by releasing gonadotropin-releasing hormones. So that's why it's number 1. So it says release the hormones that are going to act on the gonads. So the anterior pituitary says will do, and so it's going to release FSH in response to gonadotropin-releasing hormone. FSH travels through the blood, and it's going to act in the ovary, and it's going to cause the development of the follicle. So this is a little follicle here. You can see how it gets bigger, and it gets getting bigger, and yet it gets bigger. This little guy on the inside is the egg, or the primary oocyte. So FSH is causing the follicular phase of the ovarian cycle. And so you can see follicle getting bigger, 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 bigger. Well, because the follicle is getting bigger, 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 what does the follicle actually produce? The follicle produces the hormone estrogen. So estrogen is going to travel through from the ovary, from the follicle specifically, through the blood, and it's going to tell the uterus, hey, we should start generating or proliferating a new lining. So we're going to have a little bit of lining, we're going to have more lining, we're going to have lots more lining. So this is caused by estrogen, and this is the proliferative phase of the uterine cycle, and that's directly caused by estrogen. Now estrogen, besides causing the development of this uterine lining, it's going to have a positive feedback effect on these hormones up here. So I'm just going to draw that up here at the top. So I'll put a little 3 through positive feedback, because the bigger the follicle is, that's going to be producing lots and lots of estrogen. So that's going to positively feed back, and it's going to cause the LH surge. So let me actually switch back to a regular pen. I'm going to draw that here. So this is going to be 4. And I'm going to call it a surge because it is a ridiculous amount of LH that is released all at one time. So lots of estrogen is going to cause a whole big bunch of LH to surge out of the anterior pituitary, and that LH is going to cause several different things. I have it here because it's going to cause the follicle to rupture, and you're going to end up with, this is my little leftover follicle, and if I could like get rid of that, in a perfect world I would, and now you have this guy out here. The egg is out. This is actually a secondary oocyte. So LH caused the allowed meiosis 1 to finish, caused the follicle to burst, so now the egg is out. It's a secondary oocyte because it will now start to go through meiosis 2. And LH does one more thing. So LH also causes the development of the corpus luteum. All right, so we're now moving into what is called, he's going to be hanging out too, the luteal phase. So your luteal phase, I'm going to put him as, so you can keep things in order. LH surge, oops, I think I might have messed up my number there. I forgot to write ovulation here. I'm sorry. I didn't actually, I said it, ovulation. That's number 5. Try that again, people. All right. So LH surge caused ovulation, which is the ovulatory phase, right? And so you have, if you need to write that those are the same thing. In my head, I just associate them as the same thing, but if you need to have it written down, there you go. So ovulation occurred. LH also caused the conversion of that follicle into the corpus luteum, and we have now moved into the luteal phase. Now, during the luteal phase, that corpus luteum structure also produces hormones. So we had estrogen produced by the follicle, but we're also going to have estrogen produced by the corpus luteum, but we're going to get an extra hormone. So we're at number 7. We're still going to have estrogen, but now we're also going to have progesterone. So we have two hormones circulating from the corpus luteum, gets to the uterus. Estrogen will cause the development of more uterine lining, so it will continue to thicken. So yes, we're going to get, even thicker. And progesterone is going to allow for the maintenance of that uterine lining. So we're going to have lots of blood vessels. So this is blood vessels, because this is highly vascularized lining. I know I didn't make this doesn't look like it's a whole big bunch of tissue. So estrogen allows for the development of more tissue, so it gets even thicker. Progesterone is going to allow you to maintain or keep that lining. So I'm just going to write that here. Progesterone, maintain the lining, because that is super important. If at any point in time you don't have enough progesterone, then the lining is going to go. So what we are in at this point in time, we are starting now the secretory phase. Secretory phase. So it's called secretory because we're secreting something. So we are secreting glycogen. So that's the food, nutrition, to allow that embryo to continue development. Because if there is an embryo, it's going to snuggle on down into this tissue and bury itself on in there. So we're going to build up this nice soft lining as a little landing spot. The embryo doesn't just sit on top, it actually is going to bury itself in. So keep in mind, during this secretory phase, we are also in the luteal phase. So these two guys really overlap pretty closely in terms of time. And so when you look at, if you were trying to match up the ovarian cycle and the uterine cycle, these two match the best. Because at this time in the luteal phase, the egg is out. It's going to be traveling this way, and if there's fertilization, then that embryo will start to develop and continue tracking this way so that it can embed into the lining. Well, the secretory phase is all about making sure there is a lining that's there, and that lining has material that will sustain and allow that embryo to continue going through cellular respiration. So that progesterone is going to be key at keeping the lining there. Is it possible, if there wasn't enough progesterone being made, and if there was an embryo, but there wasn't enough progesterone, could this lining slough off and take the embryo with it? Yes, that is possible. And a woman wouldn't even know that she was pregnant. So progesterone is really key here. Besides maintaining this lining, progesterone does have another thing that it does. Progesterone will inhibit FSH and LH. So understanding that and knowing that having high levels of progesterone in your body will inhibit FSH or LH, this is the basis of all hormone methods of birth control. And so by taking progesterone, you don't have FSH. Well, if you don't have FSH, you don't start a follicle. No follicle means no egg, right? And so if you think about why is this important in this particular time frame, well, you're waiting to see if this egg gets fertilized. So if this egg is traveling on down and maybe being fertilized, you don't want to start a new follicle. You've already invested all this energy and resources into this egg. Don't start a new one while you're waiting to see if this one is successful. Okay, so now the corpus luteum has basically, I think of it like I said, I'm sure I said this, like a timer. Tick tock, 2 weeks goes by. If there's no embryo, then we are going to continue on this path, and what's going to happen is that there will be a breakdown or a disintegration of the corpus luteum. So that's going to be number 9. Corpus luteum disintegrates. Well, if the corpus luteum disintegrates because there's no embryo, what is it no longer making? It's no longer making estrogen and progesterone. Well, we just said how important progesterone was to maintaining the lining. So if there's no corpus luteum, there's no estrogen and progesterone. So therefore, I'm going to just kind of draw this around onto this side here. We'll go to number 10. Without those hormones, the uterine lining is going to die and slough off and out. So the lining dies and sloughs off and out. Out it goes. This is the menstrual flow phase. So at day 1 of a woman's period is going to happen at the exact same time as day 1 of the follicular phase. Because as soon as you get rid of the progesterone, lining's going to die so it can slough off. No progesterone releases the inhibition on FSH, and you start the follicular phase. So this system, or these cycles, happen, every month, so approximately every 28 days. Not every woman has a 28-day cycle. They use that just as an average. So when you're looking at what would be different, if there was an embryo, you would have the hormone Hcg. I know IB writes it with a lowercase h with the big Cg. United States textbooks have the capital H. As long as you get these guys capitalized, you're good to go on that guy. So if Hcg is present, because it's from the embryo. Uh-oh, my classroom lights just turned off. That's all right. We'll just leave it. If there's Hcg because there's an embryo, then the result of that is you get to keep the corpus luteum. And if you keep the corpus luteum, you keep estrogen and progesterone. If you keep estrogen and progesterone, then you get to keep the lining. Therefore, the lining stays, embryo stays, you're pregnant. All right. I'm hoping seeing this all together is helpful, but if there's any particular point or part that is confusing or I was not clear on, please reach out so that I can help you. Have a good day, guys.